Chapter 8 Blindness. Bigman was at once outraged. "Lucky! Are you going to let him stop the investigation just like that?" Lucky said, "Not exactly, Bigman. We'll be on board the Agrav ship and we'll continue it there." "No, sir," the commander said flatly. "You will not be on board. Don't think that for an instant." Lucky said, "Who will be on board, Commander? Yourself, I presume?" "Myself, also Panner as chief engineer, 2 of my officers, 5 other engineers, and 5 ordinary crewmen. All these were chosen some time ago, myself and Panner as responsible heads of the project, the 5 engineers to handle the ship itself, the remainder in return for their services to the project." Lucky said thoughtfully, "What type of service?" Panner interrupted to say, "The best example of what the commander talking about is Harry Norwich, who—" Bigman stiffened in surprise. "You mean the blind fellow?" Panner said. "You know him, then?" "We met him last evening," said Lucky. "Well," said Panner, "Norwich was here at the very beginning of the project. He lost his sight when he threw himself between 2 contacts to keep a force field from buckling. He was in the hospital 5 months, and his eyes were the one part of him that couldn't be restored. By his active bravery he kept the satellite from having a chunk the size of a mountain blown out of it. He saved the lives of 200 people and saved the project, since a major accident at the beginning might have made it impossible to get further appropriations out of Congress. That sort of thing is what earns the one the honor of a place on the maiden voyage of the Agrav ship." It's a shame he won't be able to see Jupiter up close," said Bigman, then his eyes narrowing. "How'd he get around on board the ship?" Panner said, "We'll be taking Mutt, I'm sure. He's a well-behaved dog." "That's all I want to know, then," said Bigman heatedly. "If you coppers can take a dog, you can take Lucky and me." Commander Donahue was looking at his wrist-watch impatiently. Now he put the palms of his hands flat on the table and made as though to rise. "We finished our business, then, gentlemen?" "Not quite," Lucky said. "There's one little point to be cleared up. Bigman puts it crudely, but he's quite right. He and I will be on the Agrav ship when it leaves." "No," said Commander Donahue. "Impossible." "Is the added mass of 2 individuals too great for the ship to handle?" Panner laughed. "We could move a mountain." "Do you lack room, then?" The commander stared at Lucky in hard displeasure. "I will not give any reason. You are not being taken only because it is my decision that you will not be taken. Is that clear?" There was a glint of satisfaction in his eyes, and Lucky did not find it hard to guess that he was squaring accounts for the tongue-lashing Lucky had given him aboard the Lucky Starr. Lucky said quietly, "You had better take us, Commander." Donahue smiled sardonically. "Why, am I to be relieved of duty at the orders of the Council of Science? He won't be able to communicate with Earth till I return, and after that they can relieve me of duty if they wish." "I don't think you've thought it through, Commander," said Lucky. "They might relieve you of duty retroactive to this moment. In fact, I assure you they will do so. As far as the government records are concerned, then, it will appear that the Agrav ship made its first flight not under your command, but under the command, officially, of your successor, whoever he might be. The records of the trip might even be adjusted to show, officially, that you were not on board." Commander Donahue went white. He rose and for a moment seemed on the point of throwing himself bodily at Lucky. Lucky said, "Your decision, Commander." Donahue's voice was most unnatural when it finally came. "You may come." Lucky spent the remainder of the day in the record room, studying the files on various men employed on the project, while Bigman, under Panner's guidance, was taken from laboratory to laboratory and through tremendous testing rooms. It was only after the evening meal, when they returned to quarters, that they had a chance to be alone together. Lucky's silence, then, was not extraordinary, since the young councilman was never talkative at the best of times, but there was a small crease between his eyes that Bigman recognized as a sure sign of concern. Bigman said, "We aren't making any progress, are we, Lucky?" Lucky shook his head. "Nothing startling, I'll admit." He had brought a book film with him from the project's library, and Bigman caught a flash of its title, Advanced Robotics. Methodically, Lucky threaded the beginnings of the film through the viewer. Bigman stirred restlessly. "Are you going to be all tied up with that film, Lucky?" "I'm afraid so, Bigman." "Do you mind if I visit Norwich next door for company?" "Go ahead." Lucky had the viewer over his eyes, and he was leaning back, his arms crossed loosely across his chest. Bigman closed the door and remained standing just outside for a moment, a little nervous. He should discuss this with Lucky first. He knew he should, and yet the temptation. He told himself, "I'm not going to do anything. I'll just check something. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and why bother Lucky? But if it checks out, then I'll really have something to tell him." The door opened at once when he rang, and there was Norwich, blind eyes fixed in the direction of the doorway, seated before a desk on which a checkerboard design carried odd figures. He said, "Yes?" "This is Bigman," said the little Martian. "Bigman! Come in. Sit down. Hmm. Is Councilman Starr with you?" The door closed again, and Bigman looked about in the brightly lit room. His mouth tightened. "He's busy, but as for me, I'm filled up on the haygraph today. Dr. Panner took me all over, only I don't understand a thing of it hardly." Norwich smiled. "You're not exactly in the minority, but if you ignore the mathematics, some of it isn't too hard to understand." "No? Mind explaining it, then?" Bigman sat down in a large chair and bent to look under Norwich's work-bench. Mutt lay there with his head between his forepaws and one eye fixed brightly on Bigman. "Keep him talking," thought Bigman. "Keep him talking till I find a hole, or make one." "Look here," Norwich said. He held up one of the round containers he'd been holding. "Gravity is a form of energy. An object such as this piece I'm holding, which is under the influence of a gravitational field, but is not allowed to move, is said to have potential energy. If I were to release the piece, that potential energy would be converted to motion, or kinetic energy, as it's called. Since it continues under the influence of the gravitational fields as it falls faster and faster and faster." He dropped the counter at this point, and it fell. "Until splash!" said Bigman. The counter hit the floor and rolled. Norwich bent as though to retrieve it, and then said, "Would you get that for me, Bigman? I'm not sure where it rolled." Bigman suppressed his disappointment. He picked it up and returned it. Norwich said, "Now until recently that was the only thing that could be done with potential energy. It could be converted into kinetic energy. Of course, the kinetic energy could be used further. For instance, the falling water of Niagara Falls could be used to form electricity. But that's a different thing. In space, gravity results in motion, and that ends it. Consider the Jovian system of moons. We're at Jupiter 9, way out, 15 million miles out. With respect to Jupiter, we've got a tremendous quantity of potential energy. If we try to travel to Jupiter 1, the satellite Io, which is only 285,000 miles from Jupiter, we are, in a way, falling all of those millions of miles. We pick up tremendous speeds which we must continuously counteract by pushing in the opposite direction with a hyperatomic motor. It takes enormous energy. Then, if we miss our mark by a bit, we're in constant danger of continuing to fall, in which case there's only one place to go, and that's Jupiter. And Jupiter's instant death. Then, even if we land safely on Io, there's the problem of getting back to Jupiter 9, which means lifting ourselves all those millions of miles against Jupiter's gravity. The amount of energy required to maneuver among Jupiter's moons is just prohibitive." "An agrav?" asked Bigman. "Ah, now that's a different thing. Once you use an agrav converter, potential energy can be converted into forms of energy other than kinetic energy. In the agrav corridor, for instance, the force of gravity in one direction is used to charge the gravitational field in the other direction as you fall. People falling in one direction provide the energy for people falling in the other. By bleeding off energy in that way, you yourself, while falling, need never speed up. You can fall at any velocity less than the natural falling velocity. You see?" Bigman wasn't quite sure he did, but he said, "Go on." "In space it's different. There's no second gravitational field to shift the energy to. Instead, it's converted to hyperatomic field energy and stored so. By doing this, a spaceship can drop from Jupiter 9 to Io at any speed less than the natural falling speed without having to use any energy to decelerate. Virtually no energy is expended except in the final adjustment to Io's orbital speed. And safety is complete since the ship is always under perfect control. Jupiter's gravity could be completely blanketed if necessary. Going back to Jupiter 9 still requires energy, there's no getting around that, but now you can use the energy you had previously stored in the hyperatomic field condenser to get you back. The energy of Jupiter's own gravitational field is used to kick you back. Bigman said, "Sounds good." He squirmed in his seat. He wasn't getting anywhere. Suddenly he said, "What's that you're fooling with on your desk?" "Chess," said Norch. "Do you play?" "A little," Bigman confessed. "Lucky taught me, but it's no fun playing with him. He always wins." Then he asked offhand, "How can you play chess?" "You mean because I'm blind?" Uh, it's all right. I'm not sensitive about being blind. It's easy enough to explain. This board is magnetized, and the pieces are made of a light magnetic alloy so that they stick where they're put and don't go tumbling if I move my arm about carelessly. Here, try it, Bigman." Bigman reached for one of the pieces. It came up as though stuck in syrup for a quarter of an inch or so, then was free. "And you see," said Norch, "they're not ordinary chess pieces." "More like checkers," grunted Bigman. "Again, so I don't knock them over. They're not completely flat, though. They've got raised designs which I can identify easily enough by touch, and which resemble the ordinary pieces closely enough so that other people can learn them in a moment and play with me. See for yourself." Bigman had no trouble. The circle of raised points was obviously the queen, while the little cross in the center of another piece signified the king. The pieces of groove slanted across for the bishops, the raised circle of squares the rooks, and the pointed horses' ears the knights, and the simple round knobs the pawns. Bigman felt stymied. He said, "What are you doing now? Playing a game by yourself?" "No, solving a problem. The pieces were arranged just so, you see, and there's one way, and only one way, in which white can win the game in exactly 3 moves, and I'm trying to find that way." Bigman said suddenly, "How can you tell white from black?" Norris laughed. "If you look closely you'll see the white pieces are grooved along the rims and the black pieces aren't." "Oh, then you'll have to remember where all the pieces are, don't you?" "That's not hard," Norris said. "It sounds as though you would need a photographic memory, but actually all I have to do is pass my hand over the board and check the pieces any time. You'll notice the squares are marked off by little grooves, too." Bigman found himself breathing hard. He had forgotten about the squares on the checkerboard, and they were grooved off. He felt as though he were playing a kind of chess game of his own, one in which he was being badly beaten. "Mind if I watch?" he said sharply. "Maybe I can figure out the right moves." "By all means," said Norwich. "I wish you could. I've been at this for half an hour and I'm getting frustrated." There was silence for a minute or more, and then Bigman rose, his body tense and catlike in its efforts to make no noise. He drew a small flashlight from one pocket and stepped toward the wall in little motions. Norwich never moved from his bowed position over the chessboard. Bigman threw a quick glance toward Mutt, but the dog made no move either. Bigman reached the wall, and, hardly breathing, put one hand lightly and noiselessly over the light patch. At once the light in the room was out, and profound darkness rested everywhere. Bigman remembered the direction in which Norwich's chair was. He raised the flashlight. He heard a muted thump, and then Norwich's voice calling out in surprise and a little displeasure. "Why'd you put out the light, Bigman?" "That does it!" yelled Bigman in triumph. He let the flashlight's beam shine full on Norwich's broad face. "You're not blind at all, you spy!"